Hi, my name's Olivia, and these are non-occult books that have helped my occult practice. I make a lot of book reviews on occult books. I also read a lot of occult books. A lot of occult books are sent to me to read, and if I'm being honest, 90% of them are the same to me. They all feel the same and are written the same, and especially the beginner books. If you've read one, you've kind of read them all. And this is no shade to any of the authors, because I know that a lot of this has to do with like the publishing companies and marketing. And so I understand that more likely than not, the book is structured this specific way and written this specific way and edited the specific way because the publishers decided on that. And the author really doesn't have as much control as you think. So regardless, let's move on. Some of them are spiritual, but I'm more saying like I wouldn't find these books in the occult section of a bookstore. So some of them may have spiritual aspects or be heavily spiritually influenced, but it's not like an occult book. That's the basis. All right, I've got a whole stack. They're not really in a particular order. Let's just start with the one that's in my lap. This is Conversations with Plants, A Path Back to Nature by Nikki Durrell. It's a fantastic book to just gain a better understanding, and if you put to practice, gain more experience and a stronger relationship with nature and just the plants that are at hand around you. It's really great for people who are really into like nature walks or gardening, herbalism, things like that. So this one is a fantastic book to just kind of like hop right in. This book is called Stuffed Animals and Pickled Heads, A Culture of Evolution of Natural History Museums by Stephen T. Asma? I don't know. This is what it looks like. This book I found in a used bookstore along with actually a couple of these by chance. So it was interesting. The general topic of this book is about museums and curating museums and like the history of nature science museums and the people behind that. And a lot of the things that, first of all, it's not heavy. Like there's heavy parts definitely, but it's just, it feels like a museum. I don't know how else to explain it. Like it's not uninteresting and it's got like a stale vibe to it, but it almost feels like you're walking through a museum with the author. It's really interesting. I really liked it. This is one of the, I don't want to say it's one of my favorite books, but it's one of the most unique for sure. And the reason I'm putting this in this video, that it helped my practice, I guess, is because a lot of my personal practice is based kind of around like in that naturalist, taxonomist kind of realm. I've always loved science as a kid. That's just something that's been like a really big staple and like savior for me as a child and as a person. So this book felt kind of personal because museums are personal to me. So that's probably why I put this in here. But I think it does give you a better explanation also of just kind of like how scientists don't even know what they're doing. And so it gives you kind of an idea of like how scientists want so bad to have these answers and how they want to categorize the world. And even today, scientists don't really have like a solid agreement across the board. So that kind of just makes me think a lot about like occultists and practices and like how a lot of people feel like this is how energy works or how magic works or how X, Y, and Z works. And in reality, like nobody knows what they're doing. And this just kind of like validated that for me. But it also, if I can find it, maybe, it also was the first book that I ever read that had an explanation or a quick explanation of how I view the universe, because I haven't really found that in any other kind of witchy book. And let me see if I can find it. Here we go. The Cold Bath Theory. I found it. This is the first time I've ever found a term for the way I personally see the universe working. And again, this is my own personal belief, so like feel free to disregard. The cold bath theory is that nature can be truly cruel and indifferent. If nature were kind, she would at least make the minor concession of anesthetizing caterpillars before eaten alive within. But nature is neither kind nor unkind. She is neither against suffering nor for it. Nature is not interested, one way or another, in suffering, unless it affects the survival of DNA. So anytime I was trying to explain it, it was this whole word dump of everything, metaphors, ideas, whatever. So it was really nice to kind of, I guess, find a term to just condense it into. Cold bath theory. Okay, next book I found at the same used bookshop as this last one. And again, it is like more on like spiritual, at least in my opinion. I feel like there's a lot of like holistic pieces to this, but it wouldn't be in the occult section. And I have done a review on this. It's called Love Potions. It is by Cynthia Marvis Watson, MD. And it's basically just like a bunch of aphrodisiacs and like history, like light history on aphrodisiacs and how like those have been changed and used and whatnot. And then there are actually recipes. I think this book is out of print, so I'm lucky that I found it. But it was a weird book to read. It was also really interesting. These recipes also just sounded delicious. So I kind of wanted to try it. Like vanilla rose cordial, filibuster orgasmic. It's like a rum drink. There's like different random elixirs. Some of these ingredients as well, like where the fuck are you getting these? Anyway, it was just fascinating, and it was more of like an elixir potions type of thing to read. There was a lot of like correspondences with sex and lust and love with a lot of herbal aspects. So that piece was why I put this in this stack. Okay, the next one is, funny enough, a book that was given to me by a friend in LA, and he found this book on the metro. So this book was also really weird. Like it felt like talking to an Aquarius. I don't know how else to explain this. Like it just felt so otherworldly in a way, like this weird interdimensional connection. And that's kind of what this book was about. It's called The Hand, How Its Use Shapes the Brain, Language, and Human Culture by Frank R. Wilson. It is dense in a lot of pieces of it, but there's just so much interesting. I just remember this being really interesting, and I should probably just reread it. But it's just such a weird book. And it's about how your hands connect you with the world. Like how hands are, in this book's term, the center of connection. So I'm going to have to reread it and actually do a review, because I just remember this book being like, it was just a lot to think about. It was a lot to like process, and it was just completely different perspectives than I had ever had. So, all right, this next book I picked up at another used bookstore. If you can't tell, I love used bookstores, but I picked it up at another used bookstore. It was in the free box outside, and it just looked interesting, and I ended up really liking it. It's called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, The Conflict Between Word and Image by Leonard Schlane. So this book is about, it's about how societies who did primarily goddess worship worked within a system of symbols and art of communicating. It's not like literacy, like with words and letters. But as you move through time in different societies, there's this strange connection between societies shifting from goddess worship and images to the alphabet and God worship, like more male-based worship. And so it was just really interesting to read. It gave me a lot of different perspectives on different religions and beliefs. And I actually suggest this book to a lot of people who are interested in like the occult or history, religions, So this one, and this is another one I haven't read in like 6 years. So these two I read in like kind of the same timeline. So maybe I'll have to also reread this and give you like a full review. And I'm also interested of like how my interpretations would change since it's been like over half a decade. This is more of a recent read. And I did mention this in one of my more recent videos as well, is Magic, A History of Alchemy to Witchcraft from the Ice Age to the Present by Chris Godson. And this is more of just the history. Like it literally says a history of, so it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a history of magic and religion. And the reason I put it in the stack is because it talks about a triple helix. Human history as a whole is made up of a triple helix of magic, religion, and science, the boundaries between which are fuzzy and changing, but their mutual tension is creative. Although very different, magic and science have much in common. Both strive to understand how the world works and the manner in which people can benefit from its working. Science divides the world into matter and energy, and seeks the forces that shape them or the chemical and biochemical dynamics that animate all things. Magic sees spirits in the land, considers how people and animals are related, and tries to understand transformations around birth and death. This piece too. Science separates people from the world, whereas magic immerses us in it, raising also the questions of our moral relationship with the universe in a way that science does not. Yeah, there's just a lot of pieces in here that I think are really cool. It also referenced the cold bath theory in kind of a different way. So again, just a very interesting read. It is dry because it's more on like an academic style text, but there's a lot of really cool notes and just interesting history pieces. So that's why I put that in here. Very well-known book, Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, I think. I just finished this one. It's fascinating. It's so cool. There's so many opinions that I have on this book and so many thoughts. You have to reevaluate what you think of as intelligent, because some of the things that fungi are capable of is just, not even some, like all of the things that fungi are capable of is just astounding. It's so fucking cool. And it gives you this really wild sense of how intertwined just the world is and the universe is, and like how things that can be so incredibly alien to us are a piece of our own being every day. I'm going into this whole vortex right now, but it's such a good read. It's so cool. The more you learn, the more questions you have, which I always find both frustrating but also really exciting. And that was this book, a different perspective on like the universe being connected in like a physical way, in a physical being. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So these next ones are all, if you don't know, I'm half Filipino. So a lot of my practice is trying to connect to my ancestors, and especially on the Filipino side. That was a lot of just like learning the history of folk practices and even modern folk practices. So these next 3 books are really the only 3 books that I have found to be heavily helpful in my own Filipino practice. And with these, I've kind of created my own UPG with this. So the first one is Way of the Ancient Healer. This one is such a good book. Such a good book. And there's so much information. There's a lot of like personal experiences that he shares, and so much history and folk practices and folk healing methods that were just really cool to learn about. And I made a lot of connections within my own life with this book. So I thought that was really cool. The next 2 are both written by the same person. Her name is Lenny Strobel, and she is a Filipina who is, I believe, lives in California still, from what I'm aware, but she is heavily based in decolonizing Filipinos and like decolonizing their mindset, especially Filipino Americans. So she wrote these two fantastic books. The first one is called Babaylan, Filipinos and the Call of Indigenous. So this one's really, really good. Back from the Crocodile's Belly. Fantastic. Both are really good reads. They're both pretty easy to read. They're not too heavy, or like not heavy. They're not too dense. Even though they are like larger books, they're not dense. And a lot of really personal connections, or a lot of things that I was like, oh, that makes sense now. A lot of cool things for me to kind of like work on within myself. So if you are also a Filipino person and you're practicing and you kind of want to get a little more into just that ancestry, even if you're not like, you know, looking to heavily work into Filipino practices, it is cool to learn about that because there's some interesting stuff in there. We're in the last three. So the last three are all plant-based. And this one was also a current read of mine. So good. So good. This book needs to become a movie. It was so fucking good. And I want to meet this person. I want to meet this woman. So this book is called The Plant Hunter, A Scientist's Quest for Nature's Next Medicine by Cassandra Quave. Cassandra? Yes. So it's pretty much what it sounds like. Personal journey that she goes through. It's her whole life story. And the only complaint that I have about this book is that it ends very abruptly in the year 2020, which is when it was published. And it was just in the midst of this pandemic. And so it's kind of like frustrating because I feel, which like, I understand, and I'm not like saying that she should have written it differently. It's just, it's more frustrating and it kind of gives you more of a fire underneath your ass to like do something. So that's cool. And I think that it's a good thing it ended that way. It's just, I didn't like that it ended that way. From the moment she was born with a deformity and she has to get her leg amputated from the knee down on one of her legs. And that just gives her health issues throughout her whole life. Faces death multiple times. And throughout this, she has always been somebody who is like immersed in science. So I related to her in that way, like especially as a child, there was just so many things that I was like, I did that too. So that was just kind of cool to relate to this person. And she goes through this journey of traveling all over the world, meeting these incredible folk healers and learning about indigenous medicine all around the world from the source. And she's trying to weave like modern and Western medicine with folk healing and like put them together and make them work one and the same instead of completely separate ideas. This book, again, needs to be a movie. It was so fucking good. And I would reread this again already, even though I finished it last month. You need to pick this book up. The next book is, I feel like these are going to be like kind of boring after how much I got excited about The Plant Hunter, but these next two books are ones that have just helped me in my herbal practice and in like connecting with my local spirits and the local species and just like understanding the land that's around me. So this is 437 edible wild plants of the Rocky Mountain West. I'm in Colorado, so you know, it's a lot of fun to have a field guide and start identifying plants. Obviously, if you're not 100%, like be really careful, but it is cool to start to kind of like gain this relationship. And as you've probably, if you've, you know, seen a lot of my content, you've probably heard me say, it's comforting. It's really cool to all of a sudden have this deeper relationship with the land around you and the species around you, because you start seeing familiar faces in a way, or familiar plants. But it feels like you're kind of greeting a friend, like this being is familiar to you. I'm not saying this specific one for everybody, just find a local guide, like a field guide of plants. It doesn't have to be edible plants. In fact, just get a local field guide. You can find these in like the local section of your bookstore, wherever you live. So look for a field guide of your area. And the last one is The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies, The Healing Power of Plant Medicine. This book, I just wasn't sure about. I wasn't sure about getting this book just because, like, first of all, the ads that I would get for it, I was just, I don't know. It was just, they just didn't seem convincing. And then I don't think that personally the authors would be people that I would agree with on a lot of different things. So I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, you never know. I ended up getting this book. It ended up being a really, really interesting book and very informative. And a lot of different uses for herbs that I've known that I haven't heard of yet. Like uses that I haven't heard of yet, that I have yet to put to action or try, but it's just curious to learn more about a plant that you didn't originally know. So that's my list. I hope that gave you a little bit of insight, and maybe if you have any books that are not really occult related really, but have helped you in your practice, list them down below in the comments and I'd love to know, and I'll definitely check them out because I'm always looking for more. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you're curious, I do have a Patreon. It's like $5 a month. So you're just buying me a coffee every month for just extra content like weekly readings and extra videos, early access, Q&A privileges to all of the people that I interview on this channel, separate vlogs, behind the scenes, bloopers, all of that stuff. So check that out if you're curious. But otherwise, as always, thank you so much for watching. Best of luck. Be kind to each other. And may your gods treat you as you've treated others. Bye.